everybody, and welcome to join us again in another episode with Crossing Boundaries. And today we are talking about Lebanon. And hello, Kifak. And we got our guests joining us one by one slowly. I have Anne today with me, who will be kind of co-hosting with me and also telling us some stories from the ground. Anne, if you don't know, everybody used to work for MEJDI until recently. We know her since she finished college. Actually, while you were still in college, came and interned with us and remained with us for quite a long time. And so it's good to see you from Lebanon. But we want to start with our friend Nasser. And Nasser, you're not from Lebanon. You just went to Lebanon, a few days ago, a week ago or so, and you decided to go there because of your work with Migrant Kitchen. And I've met you through that. I've met you in New York, which is where you do a lot of that work, feeding immigrants and making meals for refugees, and incredible work that you are doing there. But the moment you heard about the explosion, you decided to go and help out in Lebanon. So tell us about that. What made you decide to take a flight? First, I honestly didn't know you could even go to Lebanon in these times. So if you can tell us about the process of what made you decide to go there. Oh, we can't hear you. You are muted. If you can unmute yourself.
So sorry. Yeah, the Lebanon project actually started prior to Lebanon. We are in the disaster relief business. We're a profit company, or a for-profit company that makes money when we go to war and then we have to feed people, or pandemics happen and we have to feed people, or hurricanes happen. Like now we're gonna go to Louisiana. After Beirut, I'm flying to Louisiana. This is like when we get activated with these large government feeding contracts. But we also have a nonprofit, and in that nonprofit, we like to support our community, whether the Latin community or the Arab community, because nobody's paying for those meals in the ground. So on May 8th, I fed the Augusta Victoria Cancer Hospital in Jerusalem. That is the hospital that was defunded by Jared Kushner. And the project was a success. And I always wanted to do a project in Beirut. So I launched another mission in Beirut. And we were doing like 500 meals a day, 1,000 meals a day. It was like very little compared to the 1.9 million that we did in New York. So we ended up, after the explosion, however, getting a lot of renowned interest. People wanted to support. So the GoFundMe started. And then we expanded operations to do 5,000 meals. And then when I came to Beirut, and we expanded the mission even further, and we did 10,000 meals. And now we're doing also pantry boxes for the Syrian refugees. But as soon as we ended up on the ground here in Beirut, I discovered very quickly, and the phone might die. So if I get cut off, just, I'm sorry, there will be no way to charge it. I discovered very quickly that the disaster zone, the explosion where it happened, happens to be a very rich neighborhood. And there was a lot of people like that were like handing out food and things like that for the workers and whatnot. But the real hunger, the real problem isn't necessarily in the disaster zone itself. A lot of these people were, or the owners of these countries are either abroad or in their chalets in the north. The real hunger is on the fringes. It's the poor neighborhoods who are Lebanese. It's the Syrian refugees. It's the Palestinian refugees. It's the domestic workers that people threw them out because they can't afford to pay them anymore, and put them on the streets in front of their embassies, whether it's Ethiopian, Filipino, or Nigerian. Right. So we started feeding those kind of folks, basically folks who were not highlighted by the spotlight. And, we came in, World Central Kitchen came in, and we started dividing up territories. The Migrant Kitchen's philosophy is like, we like to feed away from the camera, right? I don't really give, two shits to feed as like an area that doesn't need food just because the photo op is important. So we started going to Shatila camps. We started going to the camps, in which Syrians still live on tents, and on that tent they have to pay rent to the landowner to have that tent there. They get flooded in the winter, and they're forced into sometimes awful businesses like growing hashish, for example, so they can maintain a living. And the hashish is then collected by Hezbollah and then sold back to the camps. Like this is a disgusting process, right, that we're witnessing here. We've witnessed the living conditions of people that honestly live in inhumane conditions. people who are not allowed to work, people who are not allowed to. We found like we were asked to bury a kid from Syria that his parents are still there, and they couldn't afford $200 to bury him. His body was like being bloated 2 months now inside the fridge, right? So I mean, it's real. And then inflation also hit 100%. The amount of income disparity here is insane. The corruption is insane. The factional sectarian divide is also insane. And yeah, you have a lot of people on the street calling to end sectarian divide, sure, from the young. But the truth of the matter is, like, whoever holds the powers they be and the cards, I mean, the country is in fact a failed state. And as much as we like it and love it, unfortunately, it needs a lot of work.
And how do you deal with all of this? I mean, what you just painted us is a very bleak picture. And
absolutely, like I'm really pissed off. And to be honest with you, like I don't think that there is any hope for the region. I mean, after just seeing what happened in Beirut, people can talk about peace all they want. People can talk about, all the bullshit rosy pictures that they want to see. The truth of the matter is, in implementation and in reality, the shit is not there. You have 100% inflation in the country right now. The currency is completely devalued. 30% of the country's GDP comes from remittances from the outside world. The banking system has no dollars to send it out. We went to a supermarket, the price of meat jumped to $100. This is becoming a Venezuela scenario, and it could very well be a Yemen scenario. And we look at the region now, Syria is destroyed, Iraq is in shambles, Yemen is in famine, Lebanon is in the same thing, the Palestinian territories are in the same thing, Libya is fucked. Like, I mean, like, we're getting to a point where, like the region is set to either reset or is going to an abyss, and we're doing the best we can, and we will continue to do so. I just don't necessarily think that the scale of impact, unless we get government intervention, will allow us to grow. To give you an example, the cost for meals for me here is $2. There's 25,000 people that live in Shatila. So for me to feed them twice a day for a year, I need $20 million. What really pissed me off here is that are you telling me that the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas don't have $20 million to feed the entire camp? Of course they do. And what's even worse here is that they keep them in the camp so they can like basically ask for money on their behalf that they never see. Right? It's a problem, right? And this is just one of the camps, right? There are other camps that you haven't even heard of because they're not registered as camps. Those are the people who basically were sent out in 1967 that live in dire conditions. I mean, I'm happy to send a video on this chat of a family that we moved out into a new home. They were living in a place where the bathroom was also the kitchen.
Well,
11 people in a room.
You tell me all of this, and I understand it's a disaster, and yet you're not giving up. You're not saying, you know what, there's no hope, I'm not going to do anything. You actually went there. You're actually doing stuff there. What motivates you to do what you do?
I don't think I can. I mean, I can tell you like the rosy things and tell you like I can't sit with myself, and that's true. I can't sit with myself and not do it. But the truth of the matter is that, like, to me, I get pleasure from making sure that at least a person doesn't go hungry. For me, hunger is a universal thing. It's above sex, it's above religion. It's an ultimate equalizer. Anybody can be hungry. The question is that can you feed them? Can you feed them twice a day? Can you feed them 3 times a day? Because here's the thing: if I can provide food insecurity, for example, or food security to the Palestinian territories or the camps, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Then they don't have to take their kids out of school to beg on the streets. They don't have to marry their daughters young. So now, because usually there is not a homelessness problem here. People have homes. Whether they're living 11 people in a room, that's a different story. But there is a home, there's a roof over their head, but there is no money to eat. So if you get them the food to eat, that little money that they have can go towards other things, school books, an afternoon class, or whatever it is that they need to go. Because we're not going to change their income and increase it, but we can provide the supplements that they don't have to spend the income on, especially food, especially in a place where it imports 80% of their food. So it's unattainable, right? Like, you live in a society where there's a lot of water, for example, here, and you can't grow the food. Egypt has the Nile, yet it's cheaper to get rice from California because of the amount of development aid that was bought since the 70s. I mean, it's a whole new game. I mean, food is the most weaponized, the cheapest weapon that can be used, and people don't think about it that way.
Thank you, Nasser. I know you couldn't join us for a long time, and you wanted to join us for a few minutes to just tell us how it is there from the ground. I really appreciate it and appreciate you being there and And obviously in Interact, we will be supporting you in your work, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank you
Just
so much.
listen.
Stay for an update from Beirut and an update from Louisiana. We'll be active there on Monday.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hear more from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. I just want to say to everyone listening to us that we actually will be sending donations to variety of organizations who are working there. Definitely Nasser's and Migrant Kitchen, who are doing incredible work, not just in Lebanon, other places. And we're doing that through our nonprofit, Interact International. And that brings me to our next guest. Hello, Myrna.
Hi, how are you guys?
We are good. And Myrna, you are a person who's doing just so many things. And you are a journalist, you are a student, a volunteer, and the board of these organizations, doing so much in what's happening now.
Well, we should. In times of crisis, we should be doing so much.
And just to tell everyone, you are Lebanese, you are from the area. And can you talk about what happened in Lebanon? Where did this explosion come from? And why is the country in such a dire situation?
To be more clear, Lebanon's problem is way further than just the port's blast. It has started, let's say, like in October 2019. There were these fires raging across the country, and our government could not put an end to them. And then came a political crisis where this revolution had started, and the government then had to resign. Then we had that economic problem at the beginning, in January 2020. Our national currency had lost like about 60% of its value. It has depreciated like, I don't know, Yani, from $1 was equal to 1,500 LBP. Now it's equal to like 8,000. It has even reached like 10,000 LBP lately. So yeah, the blast had just added to our crisis. But what was too tragic about the blast is the number of casualties it had. It had like 7,000 injured, 300,000 are now homeless. We had like 250 dead. That was tragic. And that had happened all at once, and it was just shocking.
And you are engaged with a few organizations. One that is very dear to me is Volunteers Without Borders, because it's an organization that mobilizes locals to say, let's not just wait for people from the outside to help. What can we do? And you've been doing a lot of work. The moment the blast happened, you were among the first to be on the streets and started working. Can you tell us about what you're doing? We're showing photos from your work on the street. Can you tell us what you're doing?
Of course. We had to respond to this crisis with all that we could. So the very first thing we did was just cleaning the roads and removing all the destruction that was there. Then we had to go into the houses to renovate what we could renovate. Then we saw that 300,000 people who just all of a sudden are homeless now, don't either have access to food. They do not have a proper nutrition. So we had to go there we had to supply some food on daily basis to certain groups at certain areas. But of course that was like, we had limited abilities to do so. The ongoing economic crisis, we have no access to any funds currently. So it was very hard for us to preserve this.
Access to anything else? Because when I was talking to people in Lebanon, I was told something it's so impossible even for me to comprehend, is that you can go to your bank now. You might have thousands of dollars in your bank, but you're not going to be able to get a penny out of the bank.
True. Even those who have like hundreds of thousands of dollars there cannot access them now. Do you want me to explain this like from an economic point of view?
Sure.
So what happened? What happened is that the Lebanese central bank had like 50 billion dollars in their reserves, you know. Yani we have this pegged system where we peg the LBP to American dollar, and all of a sudden this reserve was drained. We now yani we went down from 50 billion to all of a sudden 5 billion. We now have no reserves to even buy basics. Yani we cannot now import wheat, we cannot import oil, we cannot import medicine. We are in an ongoing crisis because of that thing. So the banks, the commercial banks, yani like SJBL, BBAC, Bank Med, and whatever of these, no longer have dollars to give us. And yani they cannot keep on giving us Lebanese in the Lebanese currency. So because that would lead to a great inflation. And yeah, so we have no access to our money. Even if we want to get money from someone, يعني I have مثلا my cousins outside Lebanon, I cannot get money from them unless I have something called a fresh money bank account. And that's something very hard to start because you need to have like a certain amount of dollars in cash to just deposit as an initial deposit to put it there, and so that you can start that account.
Mirna, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
You just explained about all the basically last half a year or even longer history of how Lebanon has been going from one crisis to the next. And obviously there is so many more people to help than only from the explosion. I'm also here on ground right now, and we are working with a sort of private initiative together with some German Lebanese people. And we have been finding us in a really like moral dilemma of how do we prioritize our aid? Do we give the money to people who are first and foremost affected by the blast, or do we just go and try to help anyone we can? Like you and like the speaker before said, some of the areas that are affected most by the blast are kind of areas that are very well off. So we for ourselves, for example, decided not to focus on those because those are the ones getting the most media attention. Those are the ones that have already quite some, let's say, resources to fall back on. But from the other areas that have been affected by the blast to the people that have already been super poor before the blast happened, like our speaker before told us, refugees, migrant workers, how do you prioritize the help you're giving? Because obviously there is, for every one person you help, there's 100 more that need help.
Look, according to a report, to a recent report by, I think, the WHO or the WFP, something like that, it has mentioned that almost 50% of the Lebanese population is now living beneath the threshold of poverty. So any Lebanese citizen now is a potential chance of and has a potential chance to become a poor person. So anyone we can help is probably, we should help them. But the priority should be to those affected by the blast. I just told you, according to official statistics, we have like 300,000 people who are now homeless. We're like just 1 month away from the winter. I don't know if you know how winter goes in Lebanon, but there are so many floods here, and the weather is just so tough in here, so I think these should be prioritized to just have their homes, to just have a roof over their heads before winter is here, and then we can just target almost anyone here. Anyone here is going to need help in like 1 month.
And
we're not going to have access to our main, even to food, you know? That's how hard and how critical the situation is here.
Anne, maybe you can tell us about some of the work you're doing, because I'd like to have you both be in dialogue, and I hope out of this you both can meet with each other and hopefully do more work together. So Anne, can you what you've been doing? I mean, you were in Germany when the blast happened, and you started helping German Lebanese groups fundraising over in Germany, and eventually decided to come to Lebanon and be there. What brings a German person to get that involved, and what you doing?
I think you're the like 100th person to ask me the question. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're German. Why are you here?" But for me, it was somehow a very, very personal and emotional thing. I was in Lebanon the first time exactly a year ago, and I wanted to come for a week, and I ended up staying for a month because I really fell in love with the country. And since then I wanted to come back, but then of course Corona happened, the revolution happened, the economic crisis happened. And weirdly enough, after this blast happened, I kind of thought to myself, okay, this is it, like there needs to be something done. So I connected myself with a few really, really amazing German Lebanese friends, and we together, they have jobs, so they took time off, like they took their own holiday off to come to Lebanon and stay for free at their families' places. We basically just rented a car and started getting leads from different people and driving with the car into families' homes. Because like the question I asked before, how to prioritize the aid, the situation on ground is so much more complicated than it looks like. Like on the one hand, everyone needs help, but on the other hand, we also want to help those first that can't wait any longer. For example, like Mirna said, there will be rains coming sooner or later. So there's people who need their roof fixed and things like that. So in order to make sure we really give the aid first and foremost to people who need it urgently the most, we would go and drive to people's houses and really see the situation there, and then on a case-to-case basis, hand them what they need. So we would go and fix, like I said, the roof, or also a baby product is always something that's needed, like super, super urgently. So we would, on one hand, do that. On the same time, we would go and try reach out as much as possible to German media. On the one hand, I also, like our speaker before said, I'm not necessarily a big fan of posting amazing things about all the work that's being done and all the people we feed and all this white savior complex things. But on the other hand, it's the only way to keep on getting money, because the mainstream news, it's like, I don't know, maybe for maximum a week, the blast has been in the news, and since then, that's it. So in order to have a constant flow of cash coming, we need to like reach out to media. So I have been doing from here a few interviews with local German newspapers, and also we have on a constant basis, like almost weekly, new people from Germany coming. They're mainly German Lebanese, and they bring money in cash. And it sounds very like weird and fishy, but like Mirna explained the situation before, that it's the only viable way to bring cash into the country. The Western Union has been closed. The banks, well, they haven't been giving any dollars. There has been a capital freeze or capital control. It's really been, there hasn't been any way to come to bring money here. And basically now I think there has been, when they started a new lockdown, which basically right now it's a lockdown. After 6, you're not supposed to go out anymore or drive with the cars during the day. A lot of shops are closed, which also makes the aid work even harder, because, for example, today we have been driving around for, I think, 1.5 hours to find a shop that's open to find baby products for a family that since 2 weeks has been waiting to receive basic stuff like diapers, baby milk. We bought the baby chair, things like that. So that makes the situation also super, super hard and dire. And also there was in the beginning the rumor that maybe the airport will be closed again, like it has been the case, I think, for a short while when there was the first lockdown. So there's literally almost all the ways of getting donations, like cash into the country, have been cut off. So this is just a few of the additional challenges Lebanon is struggling with on top of everything else.
And we trying together with Volunteers Without Borders and finding innovative ways of how to do that. One of them is, instead of sending cash, sending a credit card and being able to buy stuff using our US account directly instead, and trying to figure out continuously what other ways we can do. But it does make relief efforts so much harder when you can't just say, okay, we fundraised $20,000, we'll send you that money.
Yes.
That's what you
and also in terms of goods donation, we have another few German Lebanese communities who want to ship things here. But then, of course, the main port of the country has been destroyed. So where do you ship things to? It's like, it's on all ends. It's like very, very complicated. But the one thing that me personally, that gives hope, and like our first speaker said, I don't want to romanticize anything. I don't want to paint the picture more rosy than it is, because it really is not. But the help I've been seeing on the streets, especially from young people in Beirut, it's like beyond imagination. It's really people who volunteer their time in a time of pandemic, really. Like, people are going out that are even people that have, we're on the forefront of talking and being around people that have been homeless, that have no access to health, to even masks. I mean, some people are wearing the same masks for like 2 weeks. You can see it's like there's no point in wearing it anyways. But it's really people putting their health and themselves at risk to help out. And it's like we've said before, the political system is since long time really corrupt, very unstable, and is really not working anymore. But even across confessions, like in Lebanon, you have this proportional confessional system. There is Palestinians going to Christian areas and helping cleaning up. There is people from poor neighborhoods coming to rich, or the other way around. There's really, especially from young people, so much good work being done that goes across, really, like, seems to unite Lebanon, at least for the young generation, like I said, in many possible, like, amazing ways. And that's what gives me hope.
Myrna, I hope you see that as well. But I also want to, I see people are starting to send us questions. And one of the question is, we're talking about all the problems we've been raising, but how about also COVID-19, coronavirus? How is that adds to the whole complications? How is Lebanon doing with it? And does it add to the issue of poverty and the whole issue, all these complications we're talking about?
Well, I just told you, we have, the crisis has just been going on and adding up, and it's just like hell here. And there's been this recent outbreak for the COVID-19. We now have like around 600 to 700 positive cases per day. All that came simultaneously with the port blast, where we have lost 4 of our biggest, hugest hospitals in the heart of Beirut. And that is just tragic. Yani, one of the main sectors that needs support now, it needs fundraising from everywhere, is the healthcare sector, because it's tragic there. Yani, we've lost like 500 clinics within a 2-kilometer radius of the blast, and we've lost 4 of our main hospitals as well. So yeah, that's how tragic things are at a healthcare level.
There are so many people who are wanting to help, And one thing I see is people don't know how to help. If they're in the States, let's say they want to donate to help in Lebanon. Who do you even donate to? I mean, I normally tell people don't donate only to the large organizations because it doesn't help locally and the overhead is ridiculous. So if people want to help Lebanese groups today, how do they check which organization is the right one to give? How do they know how to do it?
I think they can refer probably to their digital image. That's where everything is posted and announced on what groups are currently active, on ground active, you know. But I think that these funds should not always be going to like large international organizations, you know. Volunteers Without Borders, which is an NGO that I've been volunteering with for like about 7 to 8 years now, is one of the most locally known NGOs, but it's not that huge. It's not an international NGO like Red Cross, for example. And it's currently active on ground with its own volunteers. Yani, we have no support from anyone. We're just there on our own. So that's an example of organizations that need to be supported, and where the support would be efficient and would go to a very mindfully targeted groups.
Right. And it's important to say again, the reason Interact decided to get involved, we decided to get involved is because we realized that local small organizations in Lebanon are not being able to reach any donations. People don't know that money's going to go to national groups, and we wanted to create an avenue on our website to be able to fundraise for Volunteers Without Borders and other groups, so we can help those local organizations get the supplies. And I was amazed when I talked to you guys. I asked, what do you need? And the only thing I got is like, we need to buy materials. That's all we need. We need actual materials. We don't need money. We need materials. We need, if you're gonna just buy us the stuff, we don't even need to see the cash. And that's a good sign usually, I think, with an organization that says, we're not looking for money. We're looking for just being able to achieve what we're trying to achieve. We need to,
because we're really not looking for money. Every one of us is just there to help. No one's looking for money. We just need the material stuff that we need to help with, you know.
Right.
And maybe I have one more thing to add. It's for people who really take the time and look into which organizations to donate to, I think they should especially look into how inclusive is the language maybe that organizations are presenting themselves online, because there have also been incidences from maybe NGOs or even private initiatives that indirectly are maybe affiliated with some political party, or that just personally have some, in my opinion, discriminatory point of view. And there is some names of organizations I personally have also been collecting that focus especially on people that are already on the margins, like the refugees, like the migrant workers, for women, things like that. And they use this kind of language also on their Facebook, their Instagram, things like that. So I think that's also additional point to maybe watch out for.
I agree.
I know you had to go, we said half an hour, but I want to just give you a chance to say anything else we haven't covered that you would like to add before you had to go, and then we'll continue with Annie.
Thank you so much for this initiative. We really appreciate everything that might come from anyone right now, because it's just an ongoing crisis that's just adding up, and everyone in Lebanon now is in need. So I'd like to thank anyone who has even taken a chance to just think of helping Lebanon. That's already very heartwarming. And I'd like to thank those who are taking action to actually support Lebanon and the Lebanese and the blast victims. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marna. And Anna will continue. I have a few questions for you. And well, we have somebody who's asked for you, how did you get into Lebanon?
That was quite a story by itself, but basically the restrictions right now for entering the country is anyone can enter, doesn't matter like if they have a Lebanese passport or not, but you need to do a corona test. You need to have a negative PCR test before you fly. It will be checked by the airline, and then you need to do another one when you arrive at the airport. So whenever you cross customs, there will be here at the Rafikari airport in Beirut, there will be people immediately taking your data. You need to basically state where you're gonna spend 1 or 2 days in quarantine until they call you and tell you you're either positive or negative, and then you're allowed to go. So the process itself, it's actually not that hard to enter, but it's a lot of doing the tests, waiting for the results, coordinating everything, but it's not that hard actually in the end.
All right, that's good to know. You told me one of the issues you've had to deal with is, as you going and trying to figure out the aid thing, is also trying to, well, there was the aid issue, but you're also talking about the way people are reacting. And one of the challenges today, when we talked before, you mentioned the youth and how young people, on one hand, they're out in the street, they are protesting, they are hoping to change, they are volunteering, but there's also a lot of disappointment, a lot of people saying,
so much.
I want to leave, which would be the worst thing to happen to a country like Lebanon if you have the young people. What's the feeling you have, and where do you think things might be heading?
So literally all of my friends personally, and I have to say I probably have like a biased sample of friends because I'm living in Beirut, I'm living with young people who are artists, working in the humanitarian field, who are very educated, who speak well English, who are helping people. And all of those people most of them want to leave and they really are. I would say half of my friends are currently in the process of requesting, especially French, visa to go to France, because also Emmanuel Macron has been promising many things, and there's this special connection between France and Lebanon until the present day. So it is bad, and of course, like you said, Aziz, it's probably the worst thing that can happen to Lebanon, but I personally can't judge them, because for me to come here and to be here, let's say for a month or two, and to help out, this is already, I've been here now for a week, and it's draining so much energy. So I can't even imagine how it is to live in a country like this. So I don't judge anyone who just says, I want a better life for myself. I just want to leave. I gave everything I have and nothing worked and I want to leave. But like I said before, there's also people who just keep on going. And they say things like, yeah, Lebanon is like the phoenix that rises out of the ashes. Like no matter what happens, we're very resilient. We know what this is. We've been through many of those crises and we will continue. In terms of where Lebanon is heading, I think like when the blast happened, I think there were a lot of very hasty like conclusions of media also, that this will be the final blast and now everything will change and the system will be overthrown. And I don't think it's as easy as that, because of course it's like the system is outdated and is not working, and the political elite has been holding the population down since like a way too long time, but also it gets into the people's minds. And I think if there will be change, it will be more a gradual change. There has the revolution already been starting. Of course, Corona ruined everything, but there is also a few independent political young parties rising up. And I think if those will continue to grow, and even if they make it into, like, let's say the parliament, and they will maybe not make a big change, because despite everything, there is still a lot of popular support for parties like Hezbollah, like the main political parties. But even if, let's say, the younger independent parties would make it into parliament, that could raise more transparency, because they will have access to internal documents, to the internal political process. They can, from within, try to hold politicians and political parties more accountable. And really also, I think one very, very crucial factor is also the international community, that they need to really work with not with the corrupt old political elite, but really try and support the younger generation, the people that want change, that want a better country, and they shouldn't be looking away. Like, we need to continue to look in what's happening in Lebanon, and we need to try hold people accountable and pressure our own governments, politicians, whatever, to not close their eyes.
We were supposed to actually run tours in Lebanon this year. We had tours on the plan, and I know you were excited because we were gonna stuff together in Lebanon, work with youth groups there who are doing amazing job coming up with me with ideas and plans of how we can plan it. And we talked a lot about what's not going well in Lebanon, but I have to also move us a bit in a different direction. Say, Lebanon is by far one of the most beautiful places you could visit. And I talk a lot normally about let's not focus on sites and focus on people, and that's absolutely true. Lebanese are also amazing people to connect with, fun people. This is your favorite sites in Lebanon. Anna, can you tell us what we're looking at?
So this was last year when I was in Lebanon, and this is in the Mount Lebanon governance region. We basically stayed the night before in a city called Byblos. It's right next to the sea. I think there might be some more pictures. And from there, we took a car together with a friend. And I honestly can't even tell you where exactly it is, because within one day we drove through like the most incredible tiny villages, natural sites, mountain, sea, everything together. So I couldn't, like, you were driving 10 minutes and you came from one incredible site to the next. So this was, for example, the right picture. We just parked our car like in the middle of nowhere, and we started walking down a small path, and our friend said like, yeah, you'll see what will happen. And we walked down there, and there is this like super cold a natural waterfall. So, and this is like August in Lebanon. So when you go down to the beach, you have like a 33 degrees and it's humid and you're dying. It's like when you're German, you're dying because you're not used to that heat. And then you drive like an hour and you end up in this beautiful mountain area with caves. Maybe on the left picture, you can see on like how big this cave is. On top of there's tiny people, like this is people standing there. So you can kind of see in proportion how big this cave is. So it's just beautiful, like in many different ways.
Right, and I got my own sites that I love in Lebanon. This is Byblos, by the way. Byblos, if you did us to Jaffa, Byblos was built probably the same time or earlier than Jaffa. It has one of the most ancient, continuously used, maybe the oldest continuously used port in the world. Approximately 4,000 years. I took this photo on the left where people told me this is where Marlon Brando used to like to sit. There's a cafe there. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought it was amazing. And if you've been to Jaffa, you only seen part of that ancient history. The amazing thing about Byblos is none of it was destroyed the same way Jaffa was in the war. And so you, at night, the old town in Jaffa just becomes so alive, and you have restaurants opening up and bars, and you can walk everywhere, and people smoking water pipe, and it's just walking there was so much fun. I remember just spending time here. I also was there, I think July or August. It's just one of these most fascinating places. But I also like, let's move to the next slide. No, next one. I like this site. This is Baalbek. And again, if you've traveled with me to Jerusalem, when we go up to Beit Shan or Caesarea, you see some Roman, amazing Roman and Greek sites. None of them even come close to how incredible this site is. Baalbek is on the border between Syria and Lebanon. It is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. You're looking at the left at the temple of Bacchus, and I don't know if there is any temple that is fully intact like the temple of Bacchus anywhere in the Middle East. I'm not even 100% sure you have anything this well kept anywhere else. It is unbelievable to stand there. This lion face on the right, it's actually a water pipe. It comes, the water goes through and comes through the mouth of the lion, these columns, and it was, the crazy part, it was empty. No tourists were there at all when I went. And it's one of the most beautiful places and most amazing, fascinating, full of history and culture, and yet a lot of people don't know about it. I would argue even some Lebanese were not there, or just, to me it was fascinating that nobody, you can see in the photo, I wasn't trying to get a good shot of people in. There were no people. I felt like I have booked the whole entire national park just for myself. This is a conversation I ended up having with one of the drivers there who took me from Beirut to toward Byblos, if my memory is right. And he was telling me about his car, which you can tell it's a 1960 Mercedes that he still drives. And he told me how he got it from Germany and drove it back all the way through to Beirut. And he's kept the car, and he's like, this car is like a family member. He knows it longer than he knows his wife. So it's, he has this special relationship with it. And to me, maybe a good way to come a full circle is like, in 1960, you could get in a car in Germany and drive all the way to Beirut, no problem. And today, with all the borders and all the divisions, we think we are more connected today. And yet, that kind of act today isn't possible. And that's crazy for me. I see we got a couple chats and couple of the chats or maybe questions. I'm hoping we will be able to go back to Lebanon and see one of the things that were mentioned here, and that we can tour both, go to one. John is asking, hopefully we can set up a tour to Palestine and Lebanon. It would be complicated right now to do the two together. That's what I'm talking about here. But definitely taking people to Lebanon is something I'm very, very keen on as soon as that possible. And thank you everybody. Let me see if there's another question. Is the lack of government helping or hindering the aid of citizens, both in terms of a blast effect and COVID? Or is this political scene independent of all that's happening? So I guess the question, Annie, is the government not being that involved and kind of having a weak government is helping or hindering aid? And is the political scene is totally independent from everything that's happening on the ground? They're not in touch really with what's going on. And we'll that question.
Yeah, so I think that's what I also found so fascinating, because there has been no help at all from the government. Like, that's what they're supposed, that's literally why there is a government, to take care of its people in situations like this, and there's been literally no response. But again, the Lebanese are used to that, and I think one of the extraordinary points is because there is since a very long time this very broad civic society grassroots movements. There is organizations here and grassroots movements that are uniquely well organized, and they've been dealing with emergency situations in such a long time that the international agencies that came in, they were very positively surprised how easy it was to find competent local partners to work with. And of course, that makes it, you could also argue that that makes it very easy for the government to go like, okay, this is not our job, whatever, let them do it. And that's frankly what they have been doing. In terms of the second part of the question, in the end, there is organizations and tents set up that claim to be independent, but actually they're not. There's even reports. I spoke just today with a woman that I interviewed from anti-racism in Lebanon movement, and they told me about incidents that there's literally like explicit racism where people knock on people's doors in the affected area. First of all, you're already being political by choosing the area you are helping in. Like if you go to areas like Mar Mikhael or Jamezi, which is like the richer, mainly predominantly Christian areas, if you set up your tent there, you're already making a political act, even if you're claiming to be totally apolitical because you're helping those people there. But there have also been cases of initiatives going from door to door, knocking, asking if people need help, and frankly asking them, are you Lebanese? And if they would say no, they would either go, okay, yeah, so we'll come back. And obviously they wouldn't come back. There, it even goes down to incidences where I read an article today, a woman handing out drinks, and before giving people drinks, asking them their religion and their nationality. So this kind of thinking is very, very deep in some people's heads. And in the end, it's all political, in my opinion. So it's just very hard to differentiate the two in a country like that.
Right. And I'll just tackle another quick question about why we couldn't run a tour for Palestine and Lebanon. Well, to do that, you would have to cross it through Israel. Remember, there is no really Palestinian state and Palestinian borders. So you would have to go through Israel. Israel and Lebanon are officially not, officially actually in war right now. You can't cross from these two countries to each other. Israelis can't go to Lebanon. Lebanese can't go to Israel or to Palestine. So and it's something Kim and I think Kim wasn't with us today, and we'll talk about that next show. We can definitely go into a conversation of the relationship and how that affects the whole region. It's definitely something we want to do. Next week, we actually going to talk about another location, very different, far away from Lebanon. We will be in Costa Rica, and we're gonna talk about Costa Rica is a fascinating place. We'll talk about the ecosystem there. We'll talk about travel. We'll talk about COVID. We'll talk about the fact that Costa Rica has not had a military for like 70 some years. I remember getting there and getting that t-shirt that says no military since 1948 and thinking, wow, interesting. Apparently you can have no military and still not get occupied by somebody, because that's a question probably comes to all of our minds. How do you stay independent without a military? So we will talk about all of that next week. And before we finish, I thought I would, for 1 second, Shannon, if you get out of the screen, thank you. So before we finish, I want to play a tune for you that I think would be a great way for us to finish. We talk always about it's not where, but how we travel. But one of my favorite songs in Lebanon from a Lebanese singer is Fairuz, the greatest, probably one of the greatest singers in the whole Arab world. And she has a song specifically about Beirut. So it says, from my heart, I send greetings to Beirut, sending kisses to the sea, to the houses, and to an old rock that looks like an old sailor. So I'll play just a few seconds of it and we'll end with those tunes. And thank you, Anne, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
للبحر والبيوت بصخرة كأنها وجه بحار قديم هي من روح الشعب ثمر